Hi, good afternoon. I see that we have Damaris Coles here. I don't know you can hear me. I just want to make sure that you can.
Excuse me. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. I'd love to learn just a little bit about kind of what your expectation is and just kind of what you hope to get out of the session so that I can make sure to try my best to help you with that.
Sure. Well, I actually just launched my Shopify store yesterday.
Okay.
Um, and I am hoping to learn some best practices. There are a couple of questions that I have that I know I need to focus on. I don't know if you're going to cover anything around meta descriptions or anything of that nature, but um, I'm a beginner, so I'm wide open to learn just general best practices. I have kind of, taught myself a lot along the way on this. So,
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So I think me and you are in a somewhat similar boat in that by no means would I call myself some sort of Shopify expert, but I'm pretty good at figuring things out. And one of the purposes of putting this session together today is to support folks who are looking to get their business online. And so I was going to walk through how I would set up a Shopify account, as I have done so for a few different friends in the past, um, as part of helping get their business, aesthetically online, looking nice and what have you.
right.
I do know a number of people that are obviously a lot better at certain aspects, and then Shopify also has a really great set of user sourced information. They're really great. They have this whole how to get set up on Shopify, how to set up a Shopify store step-by-step guide that they published. And I was going to sort of start with that as like a general, just because if you don't necessarily like the way that I narrate or walk through it, then I wanted to make sure that there's something else you can look at after the fact. But then also, again, if you need support more one-on-one, we can kind of try to do that perhaps after this session or in follow-up. And we
Awesome.
also have a number of mentors that can support you as well in that arena. But I know that Shopify is quite a diverse platform and that you can do a number of different things. So I don't know if I will get exactly to where you are, but we will do our best to get there.
Sounds great.
All right, perfect. So I am also live streaming the session on Facebook. I just want to make sure that it's up and running, and I will do my best to try to flip back and forth from Facebook to the session, just in case there are any questions or comments in relation to this particular session online. So right now it looks like there's about 3 people looking at it right now. So if you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. Same thing with this particular session. If you have anything, feel free to unmute yourself. I'm perfectly fine with doing that. Or if you'd rather, you can just drop it in the chat. So this is a set of programming that we developed called Launch Online. And it's in response to the fact that there are a number of different businesses and business owners right now that are struggling to reconnect with their core audience through COVID-19. And so we want to try to help folks understand that getting online is not as complicated as it might seem. So I wanted to take the time today to go through how I would set up a Shopify account. It's not going to be 100% perfect. I don't have like a pre-made example, but I can show you examples that I've worked on for some of our other clients as examples of what you can do. Obviously, Shopify it can be very robust. But what I love about it is that it's extremely focused on the point of shopping. So when we look at the back end of the shop, you'll actually see that the first thing you see is how are your sales doing, not like how do I edit my site. So it's less so focused on the aesthetic, although that's a segment, and more so focused on the tangible deliverable, which is the sales channel construction. And so again, this isn't a hard process. I've mentioned a number of different platforms that people tend to use to set up their online business. Shopify is really great if you're doing a store-related setup, meaning like you have a tangible product that you're likely to deliver to a customer. There are a number of other platforms that might make more sense if you're doing something that, or rather, the purpose of you having a website is purely informational, or if it's a service-based product, maybe you're doing pre-sales or what have you. There are probably apps that would integrate within Shopify's system that would make that beneficial, but then there are also some other store concepts like Squarespace that may make more sense depending on the particular product or scope of work that you're attempting to deliver. So today we're going to be going through and setting up a very simple website. At the beginning of the pandemic, Shopify was offering a 3-month free trial. At this point, they're back to offering their current, I think it's 2-week free trial. But it's a really great opportunity for you to get involved and kind of play with it. I'm going to be starting at the very beginning of this process. So the most that I've done so far is I literally signed up for the free trial before we got on. So you'll see sort of my narration of how I go through the system. And I'm going to be putting up 3 products today, all of which are not necessarily for sale, but they're things that you can get theoretically if you come to launch a say. So a button, a t-shirt, and a sticker. And so we'll walk through setting up those 3 products. We'll walk through how to lay out your navigation. I'll provide some insights on where you can get some quality stock photos for free to help you sort of accentuate your the aesthetics of your page. And then we can kind of take a look at some of the other elements of Shopify's backend, which I think are really great. So that's sort of what I'm planning on doing today. But again, if you have questions, comments, problems, if you need more specific assistance one-on-one, we at Launch Say have a very robust network of entrepreneurs that are mentors for our community. And so where I cannot personally answer the questions, I will definitely be able to connect you with the right people who have the best answers. And we'll support your journey, ideally at no cost, to move it forward. So that's sort of the primer. I'm just going to kind of quickly cut back to Facebook. And so you'll see me do this. Hopefully it won't be too annoying, but try to cut back just to make sure that I'm addressing anybody that happens to be there. But so I wanted to start off with just a simple, step-by-step, how do we get to setting up a Shopify account, right? And so, yeah, there's the gentleman or person, maybe not 100% sure, gentleman or lady that put together this site. The concept is a hot sauce site. And so you can see there's sort of a quick narration video that they put together that just simply lays it out. Like you'll notice that in this particular design that they're showcasing, they have everything at sort of a standard level. They do have a logo. They do have some imagery that shows the sauce and sort of action, quote unquote. And then all of the imagery of the bottles or the product to be sold is standard. And what I mean by that is that the backgrounds are the same. The sizing is the same. It looks like they were all taken from the same angle. And having a website up is a lot about making sure that there's congruency across as many different points as possible. If you take that example, I'm sure that you've been to a store before, maybe a restaurant, something to that degree, and seen something, a great experience perhaps you had, and then you try to go back and recommend it to a friend. You try to send them information about your experience or the business that you experienced, and it's just not really matching up. The experience that you got in the store or the experience you had one-on-one just doesn't quite equate online, and it looks like maybe the site is incongruent, and that the photos used or the elements depicted are shot in poor quality, poor visuals. The logo may be different from the logo or the collateral that you're seeing in person. And so it's really important to focus on a couple things, in my opinion, that help you really relate to your customer and create a synchronous brand across all versions of yourself. You always want to make sure that across everything that you have, that it ideally lines up and looks the same, right? It's a little hard to reconcile when you have on one end, you're handing out business cards that are, you ordered 2,000, and then, a year later, you're still holding on to 1,000 of them, and you've already changed your logo, or your social media handles are different, or the color scheme is slightly changed because you realize that people couldn't really read blue on red or red on blue. So you want to try to make sure that you have things that are, again, following the customer's journey, that are relating the same motion across the entire journey, so that your customers don't get confused. Because one of the worst things you can do is, oh, I really like this hot sauce, and I had it at such and such place, or I bought it at whatever store, and then I get to the website and it looks like everything is completely different. And I start to create hangups for myself as the consumer to say, I don't know if this is the same brand. I don't know if this is going to be the same quality. Could this have been a fluke instance where I purchased something or I had an experience, and will it or will it not end up equating to the same experience that I hope to get the next time? So I want to start there. And so this particular article will walk you through a number of different things. As I mentioned, Shopify has a very robust community, not only a help center, which functions sort of as like almost think of it as like a, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say a chat room per se, but sort of a FAQ of questions that have been answered by Shopify themselves. But then also they have the Shopify community, which is users providing potential solutions to your questions, and helping you figure out how to best maintain the different aspects of your site as you get more into customization. Now, they do have their own set of education as well. And then they also have a number of different partners throughout the country and beyond that will help you walk through it. I believe that they tangibly have a cost. So we try to get things done for as cost affordable as we can. So I'm doing my best to navigate today. So I do recommend, this is one of my favorite platforms for sure. If you're unfamiliar, if you feel like you're not a technical person, personally, I think this is probably about the most convenient, adaptable, easy route to go with. Their free trial doesn't require you to provide any initial payment information in terms of getting your credit card details or what have you. So I generally think that's a pretty good sign. Obviously, if you don't convert after the 14 days, then in order to move forward, you would have to. But even so, within this particular layout, they pretty much touch on the basics of getting you set up. So adding products, creating key pages that might represent perhaps like a blog for your website, or like a total catalog if you have many different products, or perhaps an About Us page. And all of those things are pretty straightforward to put together. Themes, they do have a number of different themes that are already laid out towards specific products, or specific types of markets. And so generally I think it's better to not recreate the wheel. One of the added benefits of Shopify over WordPress is that the themes that they provide you through Shopify, at least the standard themes that you have access to, are, I would say, far and above the themes that you get standard with WordPress. Now, WordPress does have probably a lot more customization. However, in order to get to a theme that you feel may be most representative of what you want to do in WordPress, it's likely that you'll have to have some understanding of programming. And then also you'll have to pay for that theme. And those themes, as have been mentioned in the past by other participants, are not necessarily the most user-friendly. And in certain times you need to have more of a technical understanding and background to implement them to their full ability. You can customize your shipping settings. This is another thing that I really like about Shopify, is that they have sort of sunk or synced, I'm not sure which one's the right one, with USPS, I believe DHL, and some of the other providers for shipping. So at higher levels of usage, there or at even higher paid levels of utilizing Shopify, they offer discounted rates on shipping through various providers. You can configure your tax settings. So if you're selling a product that doesn't necessarily have a sales tax attached to it, then you can turn on or off sales tax. I believe one example of that might be jams. If I'm not mistaken, I have a friend that's selling jams and rubs, and he doesn't necessarily have to collect sales tax on that particular product. Don't hold me 100% to that, right? You always need to check with your with the sort of tax answer desk through the IRS if you have questions about whether or not your products will require sales tax. There are also a number of different payment gateways that you can use. You can, I believe, connect with PayPal, Stripe, a number of other another number of other different ways to collect payment in your bank account. Obviously, most specifically, getting your store online and then launching your store, which is probably going to name itself more towards how do we get people through the marketing funnel to actually purchase. So I'm just going to quickly kind of touch on a few things in this particular document, and then I'll just walk into actually setting up Shopify from my end. So a couple of different things. If you start off with the free trial, you won't necessarily have a unique domain in terms of, for example, launchsa.org. That is our website. In this particular instance, you'll more than likely start off with a My Shopify domain. So you'll see in this example right here, storename.myshopify.com. So you can actually sell through that. You don't need to have a specific domain, for example, yourstore.com. And that is something like if you don't really see the necessity of having your own specific domain, you can still sell through this sort of sub-hosted domain through Shopify. For example, maybe it's not a big deal for you to have your own branded storefront if you're only selling through the connected Facebook and Instagram sales that Shopify will allow. Again, you can always change this later, and one of the things I really like about the system is that it pretty much does it automatically for you, and we can kind of look at that in a minute. As I mentioned, the layout on the back end, you'll see it looks a little bit like this, and I understand probably at this point, maybe a little hard to tell, but the primary components of the navigation on the back end are going to focus really on the sales and marketing aspects of the site. And I think that's really important. At the end of the day, what are we here? We are a business. Now, granted, if you're more of a hobbyist and you're really looking to do this more as an artistic venture, maybe other sites are going to be a little bit more, not user-friendly necessarily, but aesthetically pleasing. It'll focus a little bit more on editing the content or the layout more so, but here it's going to directly focus on sales. So how many orders do you have? If you wake up in the morning and you want to know, how's my business doing? You ideally as an owner want to see, well, how many orders did anybody order overnight? How are my products doing? What are people looking at when they come to my site? What are they clicking on? Are there ways for me to better market, or what implementations can I use as a business? And so the whole primary navigation is focusing on those business elements. And really the last element down here at the bottom that says online store, that is the sales channel. And so in the natural progression of articulating a business, I think the coolest part about this is that your online store is tangibly, at the end of the day, it is a sales channel. And so treating it that way, looking at it that way, ideally makes you a better business owner at the end of the day. So I like that they put a lot of focus on the business elements. I think that it's something that's always a fresh reminder. So, just kind of my 2 cents on why I like it. Everybody has their own opinions, I'm sure. So again, going through just kind of the basic stuff. If you want to have this stuff ready beforehand, when you make your site or start your site, you want to kind of think through, well, what is this business? So, having a tagline might be useful. Having a business name, obviously that's going to be very important to recognizability for your site. Having a logo, this is not a necessity when you start out with Shopify, because in place of a logo, it will have a simple font or text-based relay of what your business is. But obviously, the more brandable or more branded it is, the more synchronous you can make your products with your website. You're going to need to have the products that you want to have, and what that means is the imagery, however that might be stipulated. So if you already have product photos, great. If not, no sweat. I mean, you can start to at least input pieces of it or components of it. But at the end of the day, people tend to buy with their eyes. So I always recommend having quality photos. If you are struggling with photos, we did have a session earlier this month that was put together by the maker mama herself. She put together a how to take, call it relatively quality photos with resources that you already have. And so that session is actually, you can watch that on Facebook as well. I believe we also may have that on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested and you're kind of trying to keep it on the more affordable side, if you have a phone of probably the last 2 years, you likely have something good enough to take quality shots. Another element that I recommend in terms of taking quality photos is a light box. And depending on how big your product is, if it happens to be the size of a hot sauce bottle, for example, a light box will go, it will go for roughly about $20, and it'll be basically it's a completely white box with a backlight that helps illuminate the product and provide that same showcase on a completely white background. Now, I believe they also make boxes that are black if you prefer to have a sort of that black background. That's another element that you're able to take a look at. But they're roughly about $20, not super expensive. Obviously, the larger the box that you need, the higher the price increases. But definitely an investment if you're putting something together. Now, if you happen to do T-shirts or something else that has a little bit more of a mocked up feel, where you're working with a designer and they're helping you illustrate what those products should look like, you can ask them for some of those product mock-ups and utilize those in place of having a physical model show off your products. Eventually, it might make sense to get a physical model, but in the interim, it's fine to have sort of a mock-up design that shows whatever the imagery is on a shirt, or whatever mug or what have you. And again, they can put that in a white background if they're a good designer. Generally, you want photos that, in my opinion, are .png. And so that particular format makes it easier to sort of expand the imagery without loss of pixelation. Whereas a JPEG image will likely skew or pixelate whenever you start to change the dimensions. So generally, I recommend the .png file for usage online. I'm just going to quickly go over here, see if there's anybody that happens to have questions. No, I don't see anybody. Great. So far, just I want to make sure that I'm not like losing anybody. Anybody that's in the chat, do you have any questions? Or if you're good, you can do I think there's like a thumbs up button, or you can just unmute and say you're cool. And if not, that's also cool. So I can keep moving forward. So as we continue forward, a couple other things. So to walk you through setting up your products, product descriptions, that's probably going to be something you want to think about beforehand. I'm going to sort of write a few things on the fly because I'm mainly just setting it up in terms of showing you how it's done versus having it completely articulate. At the end of it, I will show back to a few different other sites that I've supported in sort of minor ways, and just making sure that you can see the elements in action, if you will. Adding products is a very simple process. Maintaining inventory can be a little bit more complicated. We can get into that in a minute. So it's good to have that stuff written ahead of time. This provides some pretty easy insight. So making sure that you're writing it in a way that's informative but brief. Understand who you're communicating to. So, if you're writing descriptions, think about places or things that you purchase already online, and go back if you're looking for inspiration and see how they write the description. If it's clothing, usually they try to describe the fit and the style for the particular person, like slim fit, chic. They might say, I don't know if people use these words anymore, but the various different descriptors, feel free to adapt what you like for your own descriptions, but they can make a difference in helping relate back to your audience. Another component that you want to try to think of is answering questions. You want to try to de-risk the investment for other people. So if you know that, for example, the shirt size runs small or shrinks, then mentioning that in the description can help people understand what that they're purchasing. And so you're not only de-risking the investment for the consumer, which ideally will convert the sale, but you're also de-risking the potential return on your end by providing a more descriptive and informative description. So, one of the last things that you want is to have somebody purchase something and then return it because it's not as described, not as the picture, or undersized or something like that. You want to make sure to think about the entire process of purchasing as you go through this. Make your descriptions easy to read. This is a very important part of anything that's online. Making sure that if it's long, try to make sure that important components are bulleted or italicized or bolded. Titles are bolded. Give it a layout that makes sense and would be natural to read. One quick tip, heads up, I know a lot of people think that centered text is a good thing. It generally, it can be a good thing if it's, for example, a title or maybe a subheading. However, centered text is usually a bad thing for readability, especially in long form writing. So if you have a paragraph of text and it's centered, naturally the text won't be aligned to the left or right or wherever it initially is skewed. So that means that my eye has to then cut in at the various different legibility points of that paragraph. That makes it hard for me to read. That can, turn me off in terms of purchasing. If you make it hard for me, it's less likely that I continue to move forward. So the idea is to create a process and create sort of a way of doing it that leaves, call it little to the imagination, in terms of making sure that they understand what it is and it's defined properly, but also makes it seamless for them to understand how the process moves forward from this point. Let's see. So yeah, again, help the customers try to envision their self utilizing their product. So for this particular example, I think food examples are really great because I think they're generally fairly relatable to almost all consumers because we all buy food at some point. So, you know, the title of this particular sauce is Hot Enough Habanero. You know, if you're questioning whether or not it's too hot, which can be a thing for many people that like hot sauce. So, you know, understanding what level is, you know, it's not everybody has a different 1 to 10 scale on what they think spicy is. In this particular scenario, they kind of tongue-in-cheek say that it's sort of hot, right, or hot enough. Habaneros, if you know them, they're probably pretty hot to begin with, but then they go through the description and they talk about it as mild. They talk about it as in terms of the Scoville heat scale, which is a way that you discuss, you know, hot sauce. They talk about the ingredients so that if you have any questions about dietary requirements, you can very quickly understand whether or not this is for you or not. Same thing would be important if you're doing clothing or anything else where your consumer might care about, you know, where the call it the sourcing came from or what fabrics are involved. All of that's important. And then quantity, sizing, and then their own sort of personal heat scale that they've discussed. They talk a little bit about media, which is the product imagery again, setting pricing. And pricing is a very difficult thing. And so I'll try to get into that as we move through this particular session. So the good part is they do have sort of their own pricing gauge here. And I guess, you know, might as well, if as we're going through this particular showcase, just kind of talk about that. Oftentimes we underprice our products per what we believe value is. If you're pricing your product compared to the market and nothing else, then you're probably doing it wrong. So, for example, you can go to H-E-B and you can buy a $2 hot sauce. For you as an individual, you may think, oh, $2, like that seems like a reasonable rate. You see somebody else selling a $15 bottle of hot sauce and you turn around and say, wow, that's outrageous. Who would pay $15? But there's a number of different factors that are involved with that. If you think about yourself and your business, remember that you are a small business generally. You don't necessarily have access to the economies of scale. So, you know, if you're selling t-shirts, for example, you're not getting a discount on buying 10 shirts and then printing on a small printer or doing silk screen or anything like that. So you're losing out because making small quantities and not having the ability to get the discounts of purchasing, making your cost of goods cheaper when you create them, that can be a problem. So if you're underpricing yourself, you can be losing money, especially if you're only looking at the market when you decide what something should cost. So in this particular example, they figured out that their tangible cost to produce the product is about $5. They want a 66% margin, which is more or less 2 times markup there to equate to a $15 price. That gives them a profit margin or, you know, a gross margin rather of $10. Obviously, there might be other factors in that like overhead, and they talk about that. So if you're interested in pricing, that's something that we can help you with at LaunchSA. So just make sure that you understand it. Or if you don't, then make sure that you're getting in touch with folks that do. Inventory, we can go through that at a little later time, but this is definitely important as you start to scale up, and especially if you have inventory located in a number of different places. So for example, you may have a Shopify account, you also may have an Amazon account, you also may have an eBay account. You could have a 100 different accounts, theoretically, an Etsy account, but you may only have one product. And let's say that that's a unique product. If somebody purchases it in one location, how are you managing to know that the inventory is the same or different across all levels? There are some apps that will help you with that through the Shopify store. However, they may come at a cost. So it's important to understand as you build out your business, how are you tracking the products that you sell? Let's see here. Shipping can be its own thing. We do have a separate video that we put together in conjunction with ShipStation and USPS that talks a little bit about shipping as it relates to online sales. So I would recommend taking a look at that. If you have questions, we also have folks that can help articulate that to you. Product variants, again, sizing, if there's different sizes, important to know. And yeah, so there's more stuff. Now, I know that you mentioned earlier, Damaris, that you were interested in sort of that meta description. This particular area talks about really what that does. So this is really where you kind of help the search engines themselves define and articulate what your products appear as online. And so leaving them blank will force search engines to really kind of scan your site, which can take a lot longer of time, rather than you just defining out for them what the site should depict when you're going to it from a search engine. So in this particular instance, you'll see that this meta description right here is the same as the meta description, or rather the description input for the product. And so if you were to go to, for example, to Google, you would see the exact same description here. So if I look up this company, kind of hot sauce, then and it shows me the products, then those products will have the descriptions that I put versus descriptions that it's pulling from other areas. It's important. That level of SEO, again, it's really important to include, and Shopify does have a lot of that already sort of ingrained within the platform. It just helps not only the search engine correctly relay information back to the customer, but also having it filled out aids your search engine optimization and in helping your site become more visible to those that are looking for it. So a number of other things in here, but I don't want to spend too much time going through this particular document, but I do want to make sure to touch on a few elements that they talk about. So key pages, that's, if you're thinking, well, hey, I had products, what else do I need to put on my site aside from just the products? That's kind of in your hands. I don't want to over prescribe what you should or shouldn't have, but some of the common pages that you might consider are a contact page. Generally, this can also be defined in the footer of your website. So it may or may not be completely essential to have a more structured contact page. That's sort of to your discretion. An about page, if you feel like there's something that really helps differentiate you, or really, that there's a story that people may be interested in, then this is where you can probably put it, that about us page or about page. Understand that most people tend to not really read those elements if they're secondary pages. Usually, think about it, if you yourself are the consumer. Now, if you're a sort of an educated consumer, you may spend a little bit more time reviewing some of those pages or elements. But on average, I would say that they're usually lesser traffic pages. If you think that leading with your story is going to make the big difference in sales, it tends not to be how people purchase online. You always want to try to lead with with sort of the first call to action, or the primary call to action, which is, these are the products we offer, buy now, right? That may seem perhaps too straightforward or pushy, but again, as a business owner, you want to really focus first on the essence of the business, which is, we do this thing, you can buy it here. Making that consumer process of purchasing straightforward and simple, and then aiding them down the road with, if you want to know more about our story, here's where you can find out or read more about that. Another couple pages, policy pages. So if you want to discuss your returns policy, I think Shopify provides sort of a general policy page that comes with most sites, but really detailing this to your business, I think, is important. Nothing that's stock is ever going to be perfect, so making sure that what you're doing applies to you and applies to your situation. And then an FAQ page. So if you're doing something that has common questions, or if there are things that tend to continue to come up for consumers, not everybody is going to be first to look at an FAQ page. In fact, it might be more common where you end up getting people that sort of avoid that page and end up calling you first, or contacting you via email to ask that question, which may be on the FAQ page. Think about having an FAQ page as sort of having your own little sort of internal prompt. If you know that customers are likely to ask these questions, putting them together on an FAQ page, even if that FAQ page isn't necessarily the first consulted point by a consumer, it's always really great to have as reference for yourself. That way that if somebody else does have a question and it's already been sort of codified on your FAQ page, you can simply copy and paste that same message back to the consumer, or you can redirect them back to that FAQ page. Generally, I would say it's easier if you just copy and paste that same sentiment when you communicate to your customers, because they do like to have generally sort of a personal response rather than a redirect back to a response. But these are just some primary things. And again, this article I will attach to the video and to the information online. So I think at this point, I'm probably going to move into the actual build, but I do want to go back and just see if there's anybody else here. Okay, so at this point, I have started building my website, quote unquote. I signed up for the free trial. And Shopify has a little narration that helps you get started based on what you're trying to do. So are you already selling? And you can kind of show, what you have here. I'm going to go ahead and just say I'm playing around. If you are selling, what is your current revenue? And this will help them eventually make a recommendation as to themes. Certain themes may be more robust or may have layouts that are more articulate towards multiple products versus singular products. And then it'll also help them kind of define in what services you may need on the back end. So I'm just going to say, I'm just getting started. Which industry will you be operating in? And this is going to help them articulate what theme makes the most sense. So I will, for the sake of this, I'm going to put, I don't really know, I guess clothing. It's not going to be exactly clothing, but we can go ahead and do that. And then it'll ask you to go through the setup for your business so that you can get paid. I'm going to go ahead and skip this particular part because it can always change this later. So I guess I'm going to have to do it right now. We'll just say that I'm at the library, which is where Launches is located. 598-663. But you can always change this later. So. And then once you've completed this particular process, it will take you to the store, which should have a fairly straightforward layout that looked pretty much like the layout that you had or that I was showing earlier through the article. I always like to have systems that articulate to me what I have left to do and what I need to do. So all of this is, pretty straightforward. Obviously, it wants you to do certain things to verify that you exist and just to, further intuit how to build out your store and connect where, things may be wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and follow its process, which is, starting with adding a product. Luckily, I already have 3 images. Depending on time, I may only go with 1 or 2 rather. So you can, pull from various elements. You can pull from a URL. This is great if you already have the imagery online somewhere else and you just want to pull it in. Product images, which first you have to upload and then they'll be listed there. So I'm going to go ahead and upload the 3 images that I previously downloaded. And they are not standard, but they will do an okay job of showing that I exist. So I have image number 1. Image number 2, which is a sticker. And then image number 3, which will be a button. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the t-shirt. Entering in as many different sort of as many different areas of information as I can to make sure that I'm communicating effectively with my audience. Now, you may be wondering, what does image alt text mean? So that means if for some reason the image is actually unable to render on your site, maybe it's having issues pulling, or if you do have somebody that is that has perhaps or is maybe, I guess, differently abled, if you will. For example, if they are have sort of a blindness of some sort, or have issues with their eyesight, an alt text image will actually read off what the image or the product or the thing that they're supposed to be seeing is. And this is really good if you are putting together a site where you imagine you'll have customers that have this. In general, it's a great practice, as we always want to try to make our offerings accessible to any audience that might be pursuing them or might be looking for them. So that is what alt image text equates to. So I'm just going to put in launch us a t-shirt. You can depict what size you want for the image to showcase. I'm just going to go ahead and put original. And you'll see that in this original setting, I now have a very, very large image. I probably don't necessarily want it to be as big anymore. And I can go back and change that later if I choose to. So again, this is adding a product. So first we're going to give it a description. So this is the launch us a t-shirt. I'm going to go ahead, and if you want to add more photos, for example, if you had a side rendering or models wearing the shirt, or other images, perhaps different colors, this would be where you could add those additional colors. You will need to upload them, but after that, it's pretty straightforward. It'll function as sort of a product with multiple images at the bottom that the consumer can flip through. Makes it easy for them to connect with. In terms of tags, if you want to sort of codify the products yourself, if you're thinking about putting collections together, or if you have stuff that tends to maybe be purchased together, or you would like them to be kind of fit together, you could start to add tags. That way, if people are looking for them after the fact, or if they're using the internal search on your site, that they may be able to find it. So for example, if this was specifically for clothing and it was coming up on summer, I might want to just look at summer clothing. Typing in summer on the search would give me things that have that tag. So think of it as, again, it's your own filing system. And if you make it intuitive, then the consumers can utilize that to aid their process in searching for the product that they're looking for. This may be only relevant if you have a number of different products. So if you tend to only have a few, it's probably not immediately important. But if you do envision having, I would say more than, call it 20 products, maybe even more than 10, it might be worthwhile to have that. For the price, so I'm going to go ahead and put that the price for this t-shirt is $20. That may seem unreasonable, but the cost for my product, and this is really only helping me understand what kind of margins I'm making. Generally, these t-shirts, I mean, they're made of really nice fabric and are done by a local print shop in town. They can range a little bit, but the item cost to me is roughly about, I believe it's about $9 per shirt. Now, granted, the more shirts that I purchase, I may get better pricing there. And usually they're not going to let me purchase from them, or rather, they're not going to let me sell something that I don't already have. So, for example, if I wanted to set this site up and say, "Hey, buy the shirt," and then I'll go and get the shirt for you on an individual basis, the cost per shirts for me are going to run a lot higher than if I have an inventory of these shirts. So, at Launch SA, we actually do have somewhat of an inventory at these shirts. Now, if you were selling something that was, competitive, meaning that the product was the exact same, you could find somewhere else, then you could do a compare price. T-shirts tend to have sales tax on them, so I'm going to go ahead and say charge sales tax on this product. That way, Shopify will actually hold that sales tax and help me down the road on putting it or transferring it back to the Texas comptroller if you're based in Texas. So you can choose to track the quantity of shirts that you have or not. It's really up to you. Or continue selling when out of stock. So if you have a product that you don't foresee having logistical issues of procuring, then it may be less important to you to have a specific out of stock mention if you think that you'll be able to procure more of that product at a soon or effective date that works for your consumer. Now, if you happen to, like, if you're selling books or produce or food or any number of other different products, they may have a barcode associated with them. If you have a product that is being sold in, like, let's say H-E-B or a grocery store, and then also sold on, in other areas, again, the larger your shop is, the more important some of these other elements are. SKUs, those are also sort of related to barcodes. None of this is really that important if you're just starting out, but they will aid your tracking of inventory once as you grow. So, and for this particular one, I'm just going to say that there are 10 shirts available. I will be tracking inventory. This is a physical product. This this is important in helping understand the shipping rates, and I will just say that the shirt is roughly about 7 ounces, or it's probably a little bit bigger than that. But and then if you want to enter in customs information, you can turn off who or where shipping is enabled. So it's not a big deal there, but you can easily do that. So in terms of sizes, I'm going to go ahead and say I have large, I have medium, and I have small. And so that's probably relevant. Once it gets to once it gets to this level, I can actually indicate of those variants, is there a differential in price? For example, sometimes it may cost more to get an extra large size. So that may make a factor in the pricing that you have listed on your site. Also, again, making sure that the quantities are reflected correctly. Okay, 10, here we go, and then 10. So we'll just say that we have 30 shirts total. In terms of editing the information about the product, obviously my page title is just Launch SA t-shirt. That's not super exciting. Your product may not necessarily be that exciting, so perhaps it's good to just be blatant. But if I want to include the description, this will help me in showcasing my products online through Google or other search engines that scrape for this data. So quick, short description, just a little byline that helps those that are wondering, well, what is this, not just a t-shirt? Well, quickly, it's a premium shirt designed and manufactured locally in San Antonio, Texas. Show off your lunch, say pride, and get one today. So I'm gonna go ahead and save that. And I believe I have my first product. So it was as simple as that. Really doesn't require a whole lot more. I do, want to change the way that this particular image looks because it is quite large. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that. So I had initially put it as the original size, but I'm just going to drop it to the large size. And it's now slightly easier to see. I'm going to go ahead and save that as I have unsaved changes here. And I can make it active, which allows for it to be seen on the site. Now I have now a shirt which could be on the site, and if I go to the preview for it, this is what it would look like for this initial site that it currently doesn't really have anything on it except for this shirt. I haven't picked a theme, so it doesn't really know how to style it just yet, but we can figure that out too. And I also realized that I put that image in the wrong spot. So let's go ahead and change that. So I would rather have the image look a little bit more like media, meaning that it would show up on the side instead. So here I'm going to add just a short description. Obviously, you'd want to have something that's a little bit better than this, but I'm doing it on the fly. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then when we go back to the preview, it'll actually render a little bit better. There we go. So that looks semi-professional. Maybe not perfect, but semi-professional. You'll see that it allows you to actually zoom in on the product if you have a rendering or an image that's big enough. The sizes are shown as you wrote them in. So if you don't like the order being large, medium, small, you can change it. Or if it was different ounces, you could probably do it small to large. That's going to usually be more intuitive for people. Add to cart. If I want to do that, it'll jump in my bag up here, buy now. If I just want to buy it immediately without having to, for example, if I was saving a bunch of stuff in my cart and I didn't want to buy any of that yet, but I just wanted to buy this particular thing, I could avoid having to do the two-step process or fixing my cart and then re-editing my cart. I could just buy it now. It's a good feature. So I have a product. That's step one, right? So I have a product. Now let's take a look at the themes, right? Now it seems counterintuitive to have a product before you pick the theme, but for this particular segment, we are going to do product and then theme because that's how they laid it out. So you have a couple different options here when you choose themes. And those themes are available, let me see, in the theme library. So there are free themes. There's also, you can purchase paid themes. And they're organized for a number of different businesses. So the default that everybody gets is usually this one called Debut, which is pretty straightforward. Doesn't really require a whole lot. It's kind of minimalistic in a sense. There are themes for stores that have a lot of products. You can see that most of these are sort of articulated towards food or clothing. And in some cases, it looks like this one's sort of housewares. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Brooklyn. And if you actually go through them, you'll see that they each have their own little description This is made for modern apparel brands, or like that's kind of the vibe that you'll get. The structure, it'll give you some features that tell you how things will be laid out. And you can also kind of flip back and forth. So you'll see in this particular one, the playful version, this one actually is being adapted for food, cupcakes specifically. The classic version looks a little bit more like clothing. So I add that to my library, and then I can go ahead and actually change the theme. I believe I can do that here. I need to back up. Let me see. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this the primary theme once I customize it. So the great part about it is that everything is really drag and drop, and it pretty much tells you what you need to do as you go through it. So once you pick your theme, you'll see introductory hero banner. It'll tell you, what to put in each area. If you have different product layouts, you can do that. Kind of gives you a sample of pretty much everything that you can do. All of these are organizable, drag and drop. You'll see that I'm literally moving a product from top to bottom. So I'm going to go ahead, because I don't really have that many products, I'm just going to go ahead and edit out certain pieces that I don't need. So the slideshow one, I don't need, so I'm just going to take that out. I'll remove that section. The rich text, which is going to be this description one right here, I'm going to take that out as well. Collections list, I don't have that many products, so I'm going to take that out as well. Again, I don't have featured collections. And then, but I will leave the newsletter in. And then the footer. So in the footer, you can showcase what payment methods are available. You see everything is really drag and drop, very easy to do. So, as simple as checkboxes. I don't really want anybody else to change the currency, so I'm just going to leave it unchangeable. It does have a search bar, so if I want to search as a consumer, I'm able to do that as well. So in the footer, I do want to make sure that I have some information about my business. I'm starting from the bottom to the top just so that I have the correct information. And you'll notice once I did that, it took me to this navigation area. And so it's already got a title, which is footer menu. And I can go ahead and add some information to that. So for example, this particular item, I want it to say contact. And if I want to link it, I can link it to any of the different pages here. So actually, instead of having it be contact, I'm going to say return policy. And it's going to link to my policy page, if I had one, which I don't, unfortunately. So now we're hitting the roadblock of not having the thing that I needed. So that's no problem. So in this footer, you're actually able to add and delete and add extra stuff that will help describe your business better. So I'm going to head back to the editing component. I'm going to add a little section. And I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and add some text. So this is where the text tangibly shows up. I can edit it here. Make it big so people can see it. And then make sure that people have a good idea of what I'm showing them. And I can also drop it into the footer, which is what I just did. So now it's a part of the footer segment. Anyway. So going back to the header, if you have a logo, you can swap out the logo. Instead, at the moment, it has the name of the site that I put up, which is just simply launch online codes. I'm going to go ahead and put in one of the logos that I have for Launch SA. And once I do that, it'll automatically resize to fit that top corner right there. So now going to that, I can resize it if I want it to look bigger. If I want it to be more transparent, I can change the colors in the link. So right now everything is black on white, I believe, but I could change that if I wanted to a different color. I can make the header transparent. So if I move it around, it'll bleed into the other colors that are a part of the website. I can change my navigation, so you can see how it's editing right here. I can turn on and off an announcement. So for example, if you have like free shipping, you can edit the announcement. And change the color of that too to make it more prominent, but you can leave that up there. Or if you have any announcements, for example, for your business that you want to let your customers know, like you're closed on Thanksgiving, that would be another area to announce it. So for the featured product, I'm going to go ahead and select the product that I just made, which is this Launch SA t-shirt. The cool part is that once I made the product and then go into the theme and start editing around in the theme, you'll see that it'll immediately import however it was. And it shows I can kind of easily click what type of product that I want. I can add it to cart. I can buy it now. If I want to read the description, I can do that there. And then I can also share it to these various mediums. I can also turn all of that off if I don't want to. Right. And then variant level stuff I can turn off too. So if this happened to be a video, for example, if it was showing somebody walk in action, I could turn that media off too. There's a lot of different ways that you can demonstrate the product. If I had more than just one label, you would actually see below here, or one image rather, you would actually see below here options for me to scroll over and see the various versions of it as well. So if you know what, it turns out I don't really want my product to be first and foremost. So I'm going to move that down. Again, it's as simple as drag and drop. And then I can sort of, put what I want, or, kind of label out what I think is the most important, where I think it needs to go. The other options that you have in terms of sections are video, rich text, which rich text looks like this, map. So if you have one specific location or you're doing a pop-up, you can edit your map information regularly. Or if you have multiple locations, I believe in the better versions or the paid versions, you can add other locations as well. Newsletter sign up enters in your information, or rather the customer's information, and it'll go into Shopify's email collection. And then images, slideshows. So if you want to show various products at once, you can do slideshow. If you just want to do an image with text, you can do that. And then again, collections and stuff. But if you want to do collections, that sort of requires multiple products. And then blog posts. You don't have to have them all on one page for it to make sense. You can actually add multiple pages. So when we go back to this navigation here, you see that's just home and catalog. So I want to make sure that I have the ability to do a blog. So I'm going to go back to my navigation here, and I can go ahead and edit that menu to include a blog. So I'm going to go ahead and add a menu item here. Add. Oh, first I need to add a page, I guess. So I'm going to go to pages. I'm going to add a page. I'm going to call it blog. This is a blog. You'll see the SEO, although this is extremely poorly worded, is there. Or the meta descriptions are there. I'm going to go ahead and save that. So now I have a page, and when I go back to my navigation, I can add that page into my menu. I want to add a new menu. I'm going to add it to my main menu. So I'm going to go ahead and add the blog that I just put. Pages. I don't know why I can't find it. Okay, here we go, blog. So now if I go back and save that, and then I refresh this page, takes a minute. I now have a blog. Now, granted that if I click on this, it doesn't really do anything because in order for this to make sense, I would have to actually add more stuff to it. And so I can show you kind of what that looks like in a page that's more completed. But at the very end of the day, everything that you want to do is pretty straightforward in terms of dragging and dropping and putting it together. On a one-on-one basis, we at Launch SA would be happy to help you if you do need support in identifying how to put something like this together. There are a number of other things that you can do. You can connect it to a domain. So if you already have a domain, you don't require the ability to have your own hosting, but you can actually redirect this page toward that domain. I did buy a domain for this particular instance, and we're going to go ahead and see if we can enable that right now. I've done this before, and it has been pretty straightforward, but we're going to see if it works. So get launch codes. Okay. Okay. Well, that's going to require a little bit more detail. I'll put up a video of that later on how to connect to your existing domain. But initially, at least you have the My Shopify account. In terms of preferences, or in terms of the other meta descriptions, if you go through each one of these avenues here in preferences, you can talk about how things are discussed or shown. So if you want to share, for example, if I want to share this website, maybe I don't want it to have just the straight logo of Launch SA. Maybe I want it to have my product being the first thing that's being shared. I can change the image for that. I can add a title. I can add a meta description to that. If you have Google Analytics, you can drop the code in here. You can set up Facebook Pixel. All of these are to enable your ability to track conversions. So if you're getting people from different sites, for example, if you're getting people from Facebook directly to your site, or if you want to get or advertise to people from to Facebook that also look at your site, that's a way that these analytics icons sort of add to your ability to do that. if you want to password protect, so for example, if you're working on the site and you don't want other people to see it, you can password protect your site initially with a message. So if I did go to the website and didn't know what was going on, I could, as a consumer, I could read that the site was currently down for maintenance or something else. Let me see. So I guess let's go back to the other elements that we have here. So adding a domain, as I mentioned, that's going to take a little longer than we have time for. So I will upload a video of how to do that later. And then find more guidance. So this find more guidance is really like an entire walkthrough of how to really design for your business and understand the specific points of your business that you can improve upon. So if we kind of dig through, what does this look like? As you get orders, they would show through this particular depiction. Now, granted, right now it's in sort of the free trial mode, but after that, it's as straightforward as $29 a month to enable sales for your business. Now, after a while, that will scale up if you're getting a large amount of volume. And then also the benefits that they get are pretty good depending on how you're advancing through it. So credit card rates decrease with the larger plans. The amount of staff accounts that you have that can edit your Shopify increase when you move up, and then your discounts as well as getting different POS systems, or rather their POS integrations are also able to do that, or provided for you when you get a plan. The products, again, you can add and check inventory, change inventory. You can make something unavailable pretty effectively. You can delete or archive. So if you have a product that's seasonal, you can archive it and come back to it later, bring it back up. If you're a business that you receive inventory from others, then you can also track it in here as well, which is really great. In terms of gift cards and other various forms of promotions, it has the ability to do that as well. You can send gift cards to other people, and you can sell gift cards. Like, it's a really great value, and there's a lot of information on walking you through that. I really like the customer component. So if you already have a business and you're now just trying to get it online, you can actually import your customers, and you can start to create profiles for what they're purchasing and how they're purchasing, and set up sort of accounts for them, in the sense that you can track how many times a specific customer has come back to you, how much value that they have for you as a business owner, so that you can start to segment your business into customers that purchase frequently, customers that don't purchase frequently, people that are just sort of browsing. And if they leave, for example, their email address in that newsletter sign up, it'll start to create a baseline profile for them, so you can see that if they come back or if they open your email, are they contributing? Are they interacting with your business in different ways? This part, I think, is extremely effective in the long-term strategy of communicating with your customers. The analytics, that's going to discuss the conversions, and really, like, as an owner, this is kind of what you want to see if you're trying to gauge how is the business doing. So it'll give you a report. When are your sales most prevalent? How frequently are they happening? How many visitors are taking a look at your site, not only today, but over time? So you can correlate interactions. For example, if you send out a newsletter, does that correlate to more sales, more online store sessions? If you target specifically customers that are first time versus returning, you can see how their interactions engage over the course of time, and it treats it like a true funnel. So are they adding the cart? So they hit the store, meaning they got to the store, they added to cart, they got to checkout, and then did they buy? So you can kind of see where are the failure points, where are the drop off points, and you can actually edit out, like, for example, if most people seem to be reaching the checkout but not converting, not entering in their payment information, it's at that point you can start to evaluate the specific areas within that process and edit to see what works better. Maybe your checkout process has too many options or doesn't have enough clarity. Well, you can go into the checkout component of the site and edit that to make sure that it's got the best information for your clients or your potential customers moving forward. It'll show you the average order size. This is important, just kind of getting an idea of how much you're spending money on. I apologize, my dog is attempting to bite a bee right now. Sorry, distracted. So yeah, there are a number of different things in here, and you can really organize these reports to benefit your business and showcase it in a way that makes most sense towards what you want to see for your conversions. In terms of marketing, you can put together campaigns. As I mentioned before, that email component that actually syncs into Shopify's system. And from there, you can connect it with a number of different already off-the-shelf options, such as MailChimp, which is what we like to use at Launch to Say. You can also add in sort of conversion or advertising components from other systems so that your ads relay more effectively to the consumers that you want based on sort of traffic or searches or the information that they have. The more connected you are, the more likely the information you have that you want to put in front of the right customers will get to them. Each one of these can be its own session in and of itself. So they do offer a lot of introductory information. And again, they have Shopify Academy that walks you through a lot of the stuff as well. Automation. So for example, if you have purchased a product immediately, you want your consumer or your customer to get an email that talks about, you know, how appreciative you are of their purchase, or you want to send them a discount for signing up for the newsletter, you can actually automate some of those interactions for marketing purposes so that you're maintaining a relationship with your customer almost immediately without you having to physically go and interact with that customer each time. Setting up campaigns too, that's like if you want to send out a newsletter or, you know, send them information based on information that you have about them or interactions that you've taken with them. That's also where you would do it. And then discounts and then apps. So discounts are going to be focused on if there are any promotions that you want to include. For, you know, example, if you wanted to do a 20% off or a free shipping code, all of those will manifest in the final checkout. And so you can set codes for a limited time. You can set them for a number of customers. You can also set them for specific dates. So it's pretty intuitive. And you'll see, like, again, I said the majority of the information is located on this left margin, and it's almost all focused on the business element. So I encourage you to take kind of a look at that. In terms of apps, there's a number of different integrations that they have, and you'll see that they're sort of articulated for various different categories, from inventory to selling to marketing. If you already have systems in place, for example, I mentioned that we use MailChimp for our newsletter, then it's a really great thing to connect the dots for both of those things to integrate with your website. That way you can have your customer lines in one place, you can have your profiles in one place, and you can see their interactions with your information in one place. So yeah. And then in terms of other elements that you may want to consider editing, so once you go into this bottom level settings, this is where you can actually start to really detail out some of the other interactions. For example, the checkout process. This is actually where you would edit the information that's shared within the checkout, how you want the checkout to proceed, even the visual elements such as is your logo presented on that checkout screen. The shipping and delivery, this is how you can edit your shipping and delivery. Some people do a flat rate for themselves, and then meaning they charge $7, for example, as part of shipping, and then they organize the shipping to the consumer on the back end. You can also integrate with other systems, but those do have a cost at some level. Let me see. Again, the taxes, if you have multiple locations, or if you have products in multiple areas, you can do the integrations there. And then you can also manage your notifications. So if you have something sold, you can have it elect to send you a notification immediately right after that happens, so that you can follow up with the next level in the sales process. So at the end of it all, I wanted to kind of give you a quick example of a site that I've helped someone else put together. I know hopefully this made some amount of sense and has articulated a few things to you about the simplicity of Shopify. But this is a site that I helped one of my good friends, is actually, I think, his birthday today, put together. It's pretty straightforward. Almost everything that I talked about today is something that you can easily do. The layout, what I did for this, the layout is, so we have, the home page, which will bring you to this page, the blog page, which I titled something that was more creative, and then the catalog, which is essentially all of the products. And the homepage layout that I used was photo and text. And so in here, you'll see the name of the business is sort of front and center, a quick tagline, and then a product in the background to show, or a product shot in the background to kind of show quickly what this product or offering might be. I go into a short sampling of the products. You'll see that he was able to get all of the product photos to be pretty equal in terms of how they're photographed. That makes everything look a lot more synchronous, helps there. And then finally, providing, instead of doing an About Us page separately, I added it at the bottom of the homepage in a very short form version. So you can actually see James here. You'd see his product, or at least sort of the natural beginnings of his product, which is a chili piquin, and then a short, quick bio about what he does. And then finally, a slider that has some of the illustrations of the food that he has blessed with his product, if you will. As I mentioned before, you're able to change the lower navigation, rather the footer. And so in this particular instance, I put sort of a how to follow up or how to contact. I adapted the newsletter to fit in the same area. And then I also reiterated that shipping was free for orders over $50. And you'll see that's up here as well. In the blog settings, so once you create your blog page and you show where you want all of the posts to go, then it'll essentially line out like this. You'll have the ability to add images, the ability to add descriptions, video, photo. If you remember, I talked about at the beginning having good, easily read descriptions or explanations. And so here you'll see it's sort of bold, bulleted, ordered so that it articulates well to the customer. And then again, the product catalog. So you'll see here, these are all the products. If there were more than 6 products, then they would be showing as well. The descriptions, you'll see this is actually pretty much the same exact layout that I had from the from the t-shirt example. So we have product, we have description, and we have price, and we have add to cart and buy now. I believe this one may have multiple photos, so you can see what that might look like. May not. I think one of them does. Yeah, okay. So this one has in this particular instance, if you were to use multiple product photos, this is how it would demonstrate. So in all of the other ones, you only see that one photo, but this one has a secondary photo. You can see it sort of in live action. And it still offers that same ability to zoom in on it, but overall, you kind of have that ability to showcase your product in a number of different ways. So yeah, that's sort of the long form spiel about what we were doing here today. I'm already at an hour and a half. I hopefully have addressed some questions. Hopefully I've given you some insight on how you might be able to do this for yourself. There really isn't any sort of barrier to entry, especially within that first 14-day period. If you do need support and understanding kind of how to do any of the elements that I've talked about, we are available at LaunchSA to sort of support your journey online through this series, as well as a number of other series. We also have mentors that are available to educate you on the finer points of pretty much any aspect that I mentioned, from photography to SEO to inventory, accounting, and getting yourself online. We have a number of other sessions that are coming up that will describe this process more fully. But at this point, I just want to know, are there any questions? Is there anything that you'd like me to talk about a little bit more? Hopefully I haven't put you to sleep, but if I have, I hope it was a good nap. And yeah, if not, then we for sure can close. And I hope that this information was relevant and helpful to you. And we will be uploading it later to our YouTube page, and it also will live on our Facebook Live. So you're able to take a look at it later if you need to revisit anything. So at this point, I'm gonna give it a few minutes to see if anybody has any questions. And I will check on Facebook as well to see if there are any questions there, but if not, no problem. And also within the Zoom room, I don't know if there are any questions there as well. Hopefully this helped a little bit. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and check Facebook. Doesn't look like there's anything in the room, so. Didn't see anything on Facebook. So I guess at this point we can go ahead and close the session. I hope that this has provided some insight, some value. And again, if nothing else, I want to make sure to reemphasize that LaunchSA is here to help you navigate not only this process, getting online, but also navigating just any business process or issue that you might face. I can't emphasize enough that we have a extremely robust mentor network that's available to support your journey. And there's no cost to interaction with us. So if you need support, if you're trying to figure out where to go next, if you just need another layer of insight or advice or just somebody to talk to, please reach out. You could do so either by filling out the form on our website, which is at launchsa.org, or you can email us, team@launchsa.org, and we would be happy to assist you in any way possible. And it's not, I always like to say this too, it's not a one-trick pony. So if you grow beyond the issue we talk about first, or you're stuck with different variables that affect that journey, feel free to reach out to us again. We can definitely help revisit or retool any recommendations that we give you to try to align better with the reality of what you're facing at the moment. So, but I don't see any other questions. I don't see anything, and hopefully, again, like I said, this makes a difference. And by all means, please reach out. But thank you so much for giving me your time. And I hope to see you in another session that we have shortly. Thank you.